Okay. Okay. There we go. Hello, everybody. I'm Sudha Jamthe, and this is Weekly Ved. Weekly Ved is usually hosted by Yashashwini, Yash, and Yash is out today. So I have the pleasure of joining you to be a host for a little bit because we have an amazing speaker and also an amazing interviewer who's going to host and drive the discussion. So I get to join you to sit back and relax and learn and ask questions. And thank you for the select few students who are here in the Zoom session, and for all of you joining us on live stream on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And this session is recorded. And as it is live stream, if you don't want to be on camera or if you don't want your voice heard, I would ask you to go offline. Our hosts here have graciously accepted to allow for this recording. So you'll be able to come back to Weekly Ved on Business School of AI, where you're registered already, and come back, watch the recording if you miss it, or come back and learn from them. Especially, I'm talking about coming back so many times today because we have guests we've seen before who are coming back on a topic that is so important. And as I tried to prepare and talk to our guests here, I realized this is going to be such a topic that this is just the beginning of the discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Divya Dwivedi. And I just noticed Yash is already here. Hello, Yash. I just want to add Yash here. Hi, Yash. Here is our usual host, Yash. I just did the intro, so we're going to get started. Hope it's okay with you, Yash.
Thank you. Thank you, Sudha.
Awesome. Okay. So let me bring our special guest, Divya Dwivedi. Let me add her. And then here she is. Divya is one of those special people, and I am very privileged to introduce her because she is a lawyer in the Supreme Court of India, and she's very, very humble, and she won't even give you the full depth of all her background. And so we have Tiago Felipe, who was here a couple of weeks back, talking to us, getting us started on this topic of AI and law. And Tiago Felipe has a Wikipedia page, which is in Brazilian Portuguese. I had to go do a translation. And I got tired reading on the number of affiliations and how many places he teaches. And he's on to his double PhD in law. And he hosts events like ours, which are truly global, but in the AI and law realm. So we're going to have Divya Dwivedi as our guest today. And before I go offline and hand it over to Tiago, just to Divya's introduction, I want to add one thing about Divya. Divya is one of those people who is so hungry about learning. And many of you here would share that hunger for learning because, that's why we are here, finding time. And here I am joining from Silicon Valley on Wednesday. Wherever I go, we've been doing this for more than 5 years. And I don't miss this except for Christmas and Thanksgiving when we take off. And but the difference with Divya is she puts it to practice. And so I would suggest following Divya on LinkedIn because she has, she finds the time to come and share her learning. And, it's amazing. And Divya is one of those rare individuals. If I say, okay, she's a lawyer in the Supreme Court in India, you might say, okay, there are many different lawyers and many people from law background. For all of us here who are technology enthusiasts, who want to learn the latest in technology, and I'm a technology futurist teaching AI at Stanford Continuing Studies and AI ethics at Barcelona Technology School. I am a technologist at heart. And though I worked on the business side, that's my one dimension. Divya is one of those people who did engineering in computer science, So she understands the depth of technology, and any new technology you give it to her, she can actually dissect it and look at it with a futurist lens. That was not enough. And she focuses on social good and specifically gender equality, at least that dimension. I've had a conversation with her, and she said, let me start afresh and learn. And she became a lawyer. And now she's a lawyer in the Supreme Court of India. So she's going to bring the dimension of what it means. She's going to talk to us, and she's going to talk to Tiago. So let's hope, without further ado, let me pass it on to Tiago. So Tiago, I would love for you to give a introduction to yourself and then get started with interviewing Divya. Thank you. And the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, my dear friend. Thanks so much for having me here once again. Hi, Yasha, Sudha, you are fantastic. I am already a fan of your work and your research and your program and the broadcast. I'm following it, everyone, and I am also spreading the news of your show, what you're doing here for all of my friends, all of my researcher friends, and you are making a lot of success here in Brazil, my friend. Thanks so much for having me here, and I'm so very pleased to have also our dear friend Diva here with us. Well, I'm gonna be brief about me because I realize that today is not for me. Today is the floor is for Diva to share their knowledge and their thoughts. And about my research, I have some connections. I have actually a lot of luck here. I have some very nice friends as yourself, Sudha, as Diva, as some of my friends in Europe, Latin America, and so very pleased to have all those friends across the world, and we have a nice connection, a nice web of researchers from especially 3 or 4 maybe different institutions. The first CEST here in Brazil, Society and Technology Study Center, connected with the major university here in Brazil, Universidade de São Paulo University, as also connected with IGO AI, International Group of Artificial Intelligence based on UK, with my dear friend, Dr. Jassim Haji. He's one of my greatest friend and one finest researcher on AI field and engineering background, and also Global AI Ethics Institute based on France, connected with 2 greatest friends, Emmanuel Gaffi and Ato Montilovic from France and Croatia, 2 fantastic friends. Also, I have a connection with North Macedonia University, with a dear friend Goran, and some other places. And as I mentioned, I have better friends than I deserve. This is the real truth. I am researching right now law and artificial intelligence and technology in general. And this is the reason that I get in touch with Diva about a year ago, Diva. Our first connection, I was so very lucky to invite, and she reply and accepted to be a part of a project here in Brazil that we are at that time studying the Brazilian AI bill, and Diva was one of the world global specialists to share the knowledge about the current text on this particular topic, AI. And Diva shares some amazing ideas, amazing perspective, and the whole objective of that meeting at that time was to know the different perspectives across the world on this very topic, AI. And this is the reason, and since then we are I guess Diva, I see you, my dear friend, as one of fantastic specialists on this particular field. Sudha already introduced Diva, one of a major lawyer in India with fantastic field of actuation in the Supreme Court, which is amazing. And Diva is also a social entrepreneur, activist, and experience as project manager and also programming. She has a background of working in nonprofit organization and management industry. She held degrees on corporative tax law, taxation, intellectual property law, and naturally she's a bachelor of law, and she has also an MBA, naturally, and of course she has also a bachelor in technologies, and she's one of those people who can have both of those worlds, engineering and law, all together, which is, I do believe, which is a very tough task to ask, because those those words are not easy to be connected, but she does that on a very, very easy way, do her background, do all her rights, do all her capability. My dear friend Diva, I'm so very happy to have you with us here today. I'm so very happy for Sudha trusting me with this interview. And today, Diva, we will talk about a little bit more about that topic that we are discussing a few weeks ago. I guess you do recall. We are talking about constitutional law. We are talking about human rights. We are talking about AI. We are talking about all those things, and I am so very happy to hear a little bit about more about this. What do you say, my dear friend? Welcome here with us.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible properly.
Yes, yeah, you do.
So, thank you, Thiago, for such a nice introduction. Thanks, Sudha. It's amazing that you always pamper me with your words and always invite me whenever possible. So thank you so much. I'm not at that level that I can compete with anybody. It's just I love to learn, I love to read, so I keep on doing that. And somehow, with all your and so many other mentors' help, I get a lot of input. So, Thiago, the topic which you have asked about, first, I want to say something about Thiago. Since he is a PhD, he's again going to do a PhD, and there's a lot of competition right now. So I don't know when I'll start mine. But when we started talking about constitution, basic idea was to understand how technology can be talked about around constitution. How does constitution takes care of technology or any of that subject? I'll start with my engineering background. Whenever till the time I was only an engineer, I felt like I know everything, and I don't need to know law. I don't need to know anything else. I'll survive in tech field. So that was pretty much my thought process. Maybe not everyone's, but that's called arrogance. But slowly I realized that everything is by law only, because in physics, in chemistry, in mathematics, everything is surrounded by law. May not be codified law by the parliament or by the legislature, but there is some law driving it, because without law, how will you work around it? That ignited my curiosity to understand law. How does that make any difference in our lives? So how will that work? How does constitution work in our lives? It gives us fundamental rights, it gives us human rights, it gives us a lot of duties, a lot of impositions are there which are given to make sure that society is safe for us to live in. How is it affecting technology? Was the most beautiful connect which I found was, if we are not abiding law, how will we run a tech company? How will that work? How is it that AI going to affect our life if we are not binding it by rules or regulations, but not immediately binding. What comes to my mind all the time is that why are we immediately talking about having rules and regulations around something which we are still nurturing? Let's see AI as a baby. Don't see it as a full-built human who is going to take over the world, or maybe a sentient, which recently was a very big talk and it is still going on. So that being said, it is not yet sentient as far as I can understand from so many readings which I did. But sentient, why did this come to picture? Why is sentience even in question? Probably it's because we are thinking more in perspective of, and the moment we talk about ethics, that is where rules and regulations come into picture, and they make a very big film, very big canvas to paint upon. But we conveniently forget and mix and match two words, ethics and morality. The problem is morality is something very different. It is perceived in a very different manner, but ethics is something which is given by the society, as in how we have to live in that particular society, or say a technology world, say a management world, say a corporate, say any field whatsoever. Ethics can be made, they can be inculcated in a person, in a baby when they are born, and they can be taught that. But morality is something which is in our hearts. It does not run by our mind, it runs by our heart. Because at heart, if we feel sad that if we have hit a dog, it will feel the pain. That is what morality is. So sometimes, or most of the times, I see people interchanging these two words, even in technology purview. So when I usually talk to my engineering friends, they're like, why do you always talk about ethics and morality in terms when you are talking about AI? AI is something which we are developing to make sure that it reduces the work which humans have to do, because they see it as probably giving a robotic world which will be saving us. Recently, I read a small article where it was said that if robots will not be fighting wars, will you send your children to fight the wars? Till now we have been doing that, right? So how is it possible that all of a sudden we can give lethal weapons all the priority in the world, and we ask them just to move ahead? We cannot, because we don't know how they will retaliate. So giving that fact, uh, I keep on thinking on several subjects, and discussion with Sudha, even with Diego, with everyone, is always revolving around all these kind of things. How do they give rise to our rights? How is it that morality, ethics, law, technology, and constitution and politics are connected? We have to see that connect. We have to find that filling gap, that gap which has been there. We have to find a way to fill it. How is it affecting us? EU AI Act, which Sudha was pointing out in her LinkedIn post as well. EU AI Act is something which has been tabled in a way that they want to make sure that AI is being regulated as we have been regulated as humans. That regulation will not work on AI till the time we find a way to connect AI with morality, AI with ethics, AI even with properly developed technology. Are we really sure that we are at the topmost pinnacle of that technology development that has given us that kind of AI, that we can run it through any work, that we can actually give it all kind of work? No, we cannot. We still, in law, we are only using it for say contract purposes. It is the way we give it, and we find a edited version. Probably some redundancies are being taken care of, but then this cannot give judgments, not as of now, probably later. So coming back to my basic question which Diego asked about constitution, my concept always will lie that since constitution gives us a fundamental right, maybe someday it will give the same rights to AI, but not right now. So keeping that in mind, the constitutional aspect of understanding any technology is what is very important. And whenever anybody is learning technology, I feel that they should be given some moral science lessons, which conveniently have been waved off. There has to be some concept of being social, of how to behave, because if you are not biased in your life, if you are well behaved in your life and you are a coder, there is a possibility that you will end up making your code also ethical someday. Right now we don't know whether codes are ethical or not, we are only talking about it. Susanna is here. Hi Susanna, I'm taking up your topic. So that being said, I really was amazed when I started reading about philosophers. And as an engineer, as a mathematics person, I used to read them, but just reading. It was not to be inculcated in my life. But once law became my life, I realized that we have to connect it to technology. We have to talk about tech law as same as criminal law or maybe civil law or any other kind of law. So I'll keep that short now. I'll ask for Diego to ask his next question. But before that, I just have a quick point where I wanted to talk about sentience. When people were talking about sentience, nobody was actually pointing any finger for ethical aspect of what Google was doing. They said that there was a privacy infringement, but the guy who actually went to a lawyer and asked for Google to be ethical with Lambda was something which was supposed to be talked about. I have not seen yet any article on that, that why that became a question. Sentient or not sentient is a separate question. We just stuck to that particular point rather than moving to exactly why he felt that it is not behaving properly, behaving unethically with the particular Google software. So that is what my take on this particular constitutional effects of things on technology.
Jiva, you were amazing. You were already advanced some of our questions that I had, but I'm gonna let you straight a little bit on those answers that you already advanced for us here, and all those backgrounds that you have, all this knowledge that you have are aiming to reach us straightly. Thanks so much for these, my friend. Well, Diva, one of your first comments, and I'm going on this way, if I may. You already said there won't be, at least in a very near future, and Skynet. You already said that there is no sentient AI so far. We should supposedly not must be worried about these particular matters and this particular topic. And I'd like, Jiva, considering this, I'd like to understand a little bit better what's the difference between technology person and legal person. This is the field that we study, and everything we are trying to understand on the morality and ethics about it. And so what's the difference between this technology person and this legal person, and how differently those persons would understand the same law? This is the question. And even a little bit more, is there a basic reason for this difference? Diva, what can you share with us, my friend?
So if I understood that right, you are moving the discussion towards contract more. But anyways, legal personality is something which is talked more about in companies. They are supposed to be legal entities and they are given the similar rights as we humans get. But again, every country, every state, as it is said in international law, is different, and they have different kind of citizenship status for their own people or the people who come in and go out of the country. So that is how we understand, as in the person who is inside a country, whether they are their own citizens or outsiders. that is where they declare whether it's a legal citizenship or not, whether a person is a refugee or they are the ones who have seeked asylum. But for legal personality, it's a very clear-cut understanding all over the world, because it is under corporate law. It is a company or a entity which is given the same rights as the corporate law or a company law will be given in any state setting. State said it is a country. For international law students, it's more like it's a country. State is not state in Indian context, like we have different states. So it's that. Other than that, technology personality, which I was saying, was something which we are trying to perceive or maybe give to AI. Like Saudi Arabia gave citizenship to Sophia. Like we are trying to understand that if AI is being developed in that perspective, will or can it be given some rights? Like many countries now are getting filings for patents by AIs, and people want them to have AI, patents on their names rather than the owner of the AI. But most of the countries have denied that right to AI right now, because they do not accept AI as an entity per se. They are not even a legal entity for any country as of now. Because Africa tried, Australia tried, even US has gotten a lot of patent being filed, but it has stuck to that place only. And now all of a sudden the sentient question came into picture, and that's where the talks moved. But I want to go to Sudha's question. No, actually, privacy laws do not cover all of the aspects where AI can be taken care of. How is AI different in setting up laws by governments compared to other technologies? Is what Sudha is asking. Is it not everything covered by existing privacy laws involving data? Data and privacy laws are something which are very different from what AI is being developed into. Artificial intelligence is something which we are developing, or humans are developing, to try and replace workload for humans, because we think that we can find like in Bicentennial Man, a person found in Robin Williams, he found that robot to be very sentimental, and at the end, after 200 years, he died with his love of life and everything. We still are thinking in the similar manner, but that is not the scenario. Now, when we talk about privacy laws, they are very individual laws. Privacy laws are never called public laws. Reason being, they take care of your private, what do you call, private rights actually. Why I'm saying that is because when we are born in any of the states in the world, we are born with some fundamental rights. One of them is privacy rights, and they are rights. For them to get achieved by a human, you don't need to fulfill any duties. If you are inside the boundaries of your house, you are safe. That's what is being told to a child. That is why you don't have to run out. And that's where privacy comes into picture. Because if you are inside a house, you are a private person. But if you are in a public place and you are speaking about something that may be accepted as a public speaking rather than a private speaking, that is why we have a differentiation in between private and public laws. So when privacy comes into picture, we always talk about giving humans same rights as they would have been born with. Like in India, we have a right to life. We have right to education. Similarly, almost all the countries have similar kind of rights. In the same manner, we have privacy rights as well. We got it very recently. It was in 2017. We had a huge case where we got this. So, okay. So what happens is when there is something called I can tell you in context of Indian Constitution, we have something called fundamental duties, and we have something called fundamental rights. Those fundamental duties are supposed to be fulfilled before we claim any fundamental rights, is what was told to us when we were reading the Constitution. So this constitutional right which has been given to us, no one can take it away, because this is our private individual right. right to speech, right to freedom, right to education, right to private life, right to there are so many rights. I feel proud in saying that we have so many privacy rights. But when we see the similar kind of privacy rights being questioned in other countries, I think even all of the jurisdictions, even EU, especially UK, has a lot of privacy rights. Their GDPR obviously is the pinnacle of everything, and most of the countries are taking it up. But even Brazil has privacy rights. Brazil has their constitutional rights, and they are by birth, they get their fundamental rights. Their constitution gives them the similar rights. China, I won't be able to say because I have not studied China as such, but then Chinese constitution definitely would have been giving, but then they are very closed country in terms of sharing their data in relation to these things. So probably they also have similar kind of rights, which they say. US definitely is right-centric country. In US, right comes first, but in India, duties come first. So we have to complete certain duties to claim our rights. But in US, you are born with rights. So you can claim it anywhere, anytime. So that is how I understand is the difference between private and public laws. What private laws do? I can give you some examples of private laws, how technology is affected by private laws. Private law is contract law. Private law is something which gives you straight away a right to claim on your software development. If you have developed something, you can claim your copyright on that. That is your private right. But if company has taken it, that will become a public right, and they will have to go into company law to claim the similar right. So that is how the difference is there.
Fantastic, my friend. Fantastic. Very well. This question that I ask you right now was the perfect opportunity for us to explore a little bit more on this particular field and this particular topic that you already starting to explain. I'm talking about a little about subjective and the recognizing of the subjective on artificial intelligence life. Supposedly life, as you already mentioned. I saw in the comments right now that everyone watching right now are comment about privacy, and I'm going to reach you at some point on this. But let's go back a little bit on this question, Diva. I wrote a paper a few years ago about animal rights, and I like very much a quote from Mr. Jeremy Bentham, an introduction to the principles of morals and legislation. And this quote is very short, and I'm going on this. And if I may, my dear friend, just to hear a little bit on your thoughts on this. The quote: "The question is not can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? Why should the law refuse its protection to any sensitive being?" And this is a quote for Jeremy Bentham, Introduction to the Principles of Morals and Legislation, on one side. And on the other hand, we have a phenomena by most usual human beings named pareidolia. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing these. In Portuguese is already difficult, but in English is it's on level up. And pareidolia is the phenomena of the psychology explains this phenomena as the necessity of the human being of seeing human faces in different things. You know, you have a house with two windows, and you immediately connected with a human face with two eyes on it. And I'm right now, Jiva, pushing you to share your thoughts on this happening on Google few years that you already explained a little bit, and already Thank you, Sudha. Yeah, you are correct. Sudha already mentioned the link on Wikipedia. And what are your thoughts on these? And you already mentioned Sophia case on Saudi Arabia. What's your thoughts on these phenomena? Do you believe at some point will artificial intelligence be able to be as equal as a human being in rights, or do you believe it is impossible, my friends? I am deviating a little bit on our subjective, but I'm like so very much to hear your thoughts on these, and then we talk a little bit more on the privacy and all those other questions that we already have. Can you share your thoughts, Diva?
Oh, wow. It is not deviating. You are still talking about AI, and then I'll have to answer in two different modes. One mode which lives in a totally superficial sci-fi world, which will say someday I will take over and do everything for us, as it does in so many movies and so many TV series. But other part of me, I feel no, it is not possible for us to see that in our lifetime, at least not in mine, I can say. Why? Because we are still struggling with the fact that as humans, are we really still ethical enough, or are we moral enough? So if we don't know whether we are ethical and moral enough, how can we ask and complain about AI or any other development which we do in technology field? So that being said, what Susanna has talked about entity rights, I would like to merge that topic in what we are talking about when you talk about animal rights and other rights per se, which is given by our own governments, but they are given in different countries on different levels. It's not same everywhere. Here in India, we have a right to fly for birds, a right to feed dogs as well. Everything is there. So I can tell you about that. I sometimes read the similar things for US and Canada and other developed countries. But the thing is, when we are talking about all these entities being given rights, are we thinking as humans being very ethical that we have given them some rights? Are we not sharing the earth with them? That is where the morality comes into picture when I ask these questions, that who are we to give them any rights? Who are we to give anyone any rights? We are on earth, we are actually sharing the earth almost on the similar pedestal as any of the living beings. But definitely it is said that humans have more utility, and we apply our brains and we know how to live the lives. We do not live in animal kingdom, we are humans, so fine, accepted. But when it comes to morality or even giving any kind of rights, are we really moral enough? I don't know. I cannot say that I'm 100% moral. I cannot say I'm live right now. I can say that very straightforward. I may not be 100% ethical as well. There is a possibility that you may say that no, this is the time where you have not been ethical enough. So that is something which we have to question first of all. All these things, they affect your brain cells, and we are only researching about it, and that's where technology comes into picture. We are trying to understand how our brain wave works. So when you are a technologist, I think it is bigger burden on your shoulders when you are trying to develop any entity, any kind of software, or any kind of development in the technology world. You are more burdened to take care of all these factors as well before you plan the whole technology itself. Say for privacy matters, you just develop an app, you collect so many data. Like Bob is talking about retail spaces and who owns those data. Absolutely, we don't know who is actually sharing those data. You are talking about owning, I'm talking about sharing. We don't know even if the person who's owning that particular data in retail sphere, who else is going to share the similar data, who will be sharing that data, and where this retail shop will be sharing that data just to manipulate your shopping. Nobody knows. So practically, before even developing those kind of apps or even installing the CCTV cameras or anything, we have to first keep ourselves there in those shoes and understand whether we are really doing something very ethical before we are collecting those kind of data. Are we going to end up using them in a proper manner? Are we developing an app which will be ethical enough to take care of all the privacy issues? There may be one issue which will be privacy issue for me, may not be the same for Thiego, or may not be the same for Yash. There is a possibility that Yash will feel that her privacy is infringed because of some other reason, and I may not feel the same. But that does not mean that I will not agree to the fact that her privacy is infringed. Right? So we have to understand whether we are being absolutely ethical before we try and regulate anything for that matter, be it regulating animals, be it regulating AI. I'm just being vocal about it. I may have deviated from the point, but that is what
No,
I
no.
feel.
You did not, my friend. This is actually one of our very next question, and I like to get this on this wave with you right now. Surf this wave with you right now. You already mentioned the importance of ethics on the and morality on the law and the law making process. This is a very, very interesting point, Eva. And as a matter of fact, my friend, I can share a particular experience of mine. And when I finished law school, I had an idea that law could change everything, and everything as in a blink of an eye, and hocus pocus would change the reality of the society. This is a naive Thiago from perhaps 15 years ago or something like that, who wants to change the world through the norm to the law itself. And that's not the way that things go. And you already shared the importance of the ethics on the understanding of the law, the understanding of the law application, and the in the lives of people, because everything is indeed connected. You all mentioned the data privacy, and this is actually not very new matters. When you study law, you realize that this is something that we as society struggle in the past perhaps 80 years or so. We have our first data privacy law and privacy cases worldwide, perhaps a little bit before the Second World War and after the World War, and everything is connected. The question is, right now, data is exploding in the internet, and the access to data is a lot of more easier than it was a few years ago. But Diva, let me focus on the question that I'd like to share with you. You already mentioned the importance of ethics. I'd like to hear a little bit from you, my friend, if there is a cascading effect of law and being enforced without economics, demographics, and cultural impact analysis. The law being enforced alone. What do you think on this, my friend? This is quite connected with everything that we are discussing right now.
Absolutely, because whatever law is being made, it is made for everyone equally, at least in that particular country. So I wanted to compare certain democracies and certain countries currently, which are very much vocal about AI and trying to take care of AI through rules and regulations. First of them is EU AI Act, which is trying to make a boundary, as in how are we going to take care of anything whatsoever under the sun with those principles which they have just now placed. Before I get to that, I would like to give one answer related to what European Union, one of the countries, has done is Spain, on June 27th, they have launched a very nice regulatory sandbox for AI. What they are proposing is all the innovators, legal experts, all kind of government experts, they come into picture and they start the sandboxing system where they can try and find the output of this particular AI act itself. Once you try and start one regulatory sandbox for AI, the concept behind it is to get a relative answer to whatever is going on or whatever may or may not happen in future. And probably that is the reason why they launched it. And it is one of the very first steps which this country has taken. There are so many other sandboxes which will come into picture. It started with UK, but it was not for AI, it was more for blockchain. Now they are trying to move towards sandboxing for AIs as well. And it is only after AI Act. And AI Act, which they have placed in their parliament, is something which has been a foundation for almost all the countries who are trying to follow AI, who are trying to follow the regulatory reforms for AI. And only thing which they have connected all the time, which I have seen most of the places, even either in OECD principles or the Brussels this universal guideline for artificial intelligence, everything rolls back to humanity, ethics, transparency, accountability, all of these things, even trustworthiness, all of it comes from how ethical that particular mechanics is going to be. So how that will affect the whole scenario of any of the state, any of the country, is something which we have to look forward to. Because if everything which we are trying to make very trustworthy, that is going to find even any kind of gray area, any kind of dot, that AI will definitely find, and we will get to know as in where we have to plug that particular hole, and the whole process of governance will be taken care of. So that is something which I feel is where AI will be very helpful. But given that fact, how open are we to this whole process is something also of question, because every state has different kind of bias depending on their demography, depending on the kind of culture which they follow, depending on the kind of area which they belong to. There is something called global south, then there is north, then there is America, there is some other continent. All of these continents have different stepping in their own technology. All the technological developments are not the same in all the countries. So I think I'll stop right now and ask Sudha, because it's already 10:30 and 1 hour is gone. I don't know.
No, dear,
If-
it's amazing to hear this, particularly because this is something that Emmanuel and me always discuss, and when we are talking about this, I already discussed a little bit on this on Sudha a few weeks ago, when we are talking about the importance of a multicultural understanding of the necessities of your own your own culture. And this is something, because we most of the cases, at least on the law, we receive some kind of guidance of international order, and we apply without even reasoning, without even thinking a little bit on these, and considering if these principles, if this normative, if this law proposed can be indeed applied to our own reality, and we simply do it. And this bias thing that you already shared with us, it's something very, very important, because it's a cultural aspect, and that's not a problem at all. We must understand that there are differences in the cultural of India and the culture of the Brazil, of the US, of the European Union. In each country of the European Union, there are major differences, and this is good. This is what makes us human, and what makes the law systems of each country independent, and perhaps can accomplish a more fitable law to their own reality, for our own reality, for your own reality, for everyone's own reality. That's what I think, and I totally agree with everything that you already shared with us, Diva. And let me go a little further on this, my friend. So we are going to talk here for 4 hours or maybe more if we engage on all this debate. Diva, you and me, we talk a lot. You have a lot of knowledge, my friend. It's amazing to hear you. I'd like to hear, Diva, going on this morality aspect that you begin to explain. I'd like to hear, my friend, why do we need to talk about morality before ethics, and then ethics before law? You already begins to explain this, and I'd like to hear also, is there a relation between law, society, and politics and humanity? How can you relate all those topics, my friend? How can you answer this?
So should we go forward or should we wait for next week?
I was just going to jump in on that. This is a beautiful question. So I think we can't just leave at this point, and we should at least hear your answer on that. But then both of you are amazing. I've never been to a discussion about law where you're so passionate and you bring it to life, and all your resources, and you bring such a global perspective. It's just amazing. You definitely can go on, both of you. If you just let it run, you can go for 4 hours and you won't be done. So I would suggest you get us to a logical break, answer this question that Tiago has asked, and then maybe we can wrap up for this week. And then if it works for both of you, I would make an exception. We've never done this with anybody else. We've never had a single guest continue and come back again.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. I didn't see the time right now, my friend. I was imagining that we have a little bit more time, but I understand totally. I do understand.
Yeah,
Thanks
no,
so
I
much,
would
Sudha,
love to
for the
invite you
space.
guys both to come back next week and continue this discussion, because we said we'll talk about EU's AI law, AI Act, and we've barely scratched the surface, and it's great foundation you have given us. So
Okay.
I would love to hear, this topic that you just started, and, get it to a logical wrap, and then, tell us that
If
you'll
you,
come back next week so that we can continue on this discussion next weekly Wednesday, same time.
would be lovely, and if you want to have this topic and to perhaps let the audience, the general audience, on a question dot on their heads, and perhaps next week it's everything's all right, so that I don't have the time is your okay.
No, this is not just my thought. I'm actually here seeing in the comments and go for another meeting, great discussion.
Nice.
People, usually we tell people you can drop off, especially the students we invite here on the Zoom. They
Nice.
can drop off at this time, but we can take another 5 minutes, wrap up this theological break. Please come back and we can resume this conversation next week. And it's by, popular demand. Thank you so much.
Thank you for such appreciation that you are inviting one guest for another week. It's my pleasure, and I'm feeling privileged. Thank you so much. I will answer Theodore's question next week. Why I'm saying that, I'll give it a graph, because comparison between law, society, humanity, how ethics and morality, it's a whole chart. You cannot talk about one without talking about other. That's what my perspective is. But I would love to answer Bob's question, where he has asked very nicely, but I'll tell you what my professor used to tell me, that there is nothing called silly question. It's always a question which you have to answer. And quality of question is what judges the person. Answer is something which you always have, but question is something which is always the curiosity. It shows how educated and learned in a different way, not degrees, in a different way you are. So what you have asked is, I cannot stop laughing, frankly. We cannot ask Google to change AI algorithms, not at all. They will not agree to it unless we prove to them that that is what is important for them to carry forward their business and be successful in the human world. Because the moment we ethicists, we technologists, tech ethic people, we are able to explain to corporates that yes, if you change those algorithms, then only you will be able to survive the society or the corporate world, they will definitely change. Because any corporate survives on the fact that what their output from that particular company is. And Google is something which survives on data, and data is their lifeline. Everything is around it. So definitely they will, not right now, but we have to be vocal enough, and they have to be not deaf enough to ignore us, like Lambda
Divya,
happened.
Divya, I'm sorry to interrupt. Those people who are on the live stream don't get to see the questions and
Okay,
the
I'll
discussion that
ask the
happens.
question.
Can
I'll
you
ask the
read?
question.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
his question was, can we ask Google to change the AI algorithm? What if Google says this algorithm was created by another AI code? We do not know how it works or have no idea to change it. Has anybody thought about interfering and enforcing? People have, for sure people have, but the problem is we are not in large numbers. We don't know how to regulate that aspect and tell them that you have to change the algorithm. We may be able to once we can show that ethics or morality is the basis of everything. So that is what my answer to your question is. And please, I enjoyed your questions. It's amazing. But I would like to just add a last point over here, where Sudha has asked in one place about different countries. All the countries, Sudha, are on different footing. All of their laws are not on the similar pedestal, and they do not work in the similar manner. Sitting in India, I do compare a lot of laws in different countries. The privacy laws or even AI related regulations are very different. Like Thiago said, that I actually talked about Brazilian AI Act, that they took it up from OECD, but then they tried to make it more user friendly for their Brazilian counterparts. Because if they make it equal as EU, there is a possibility that they will not be able to make it more user friendly or more technology friendly in their country. So they had to make those changes, and all the countries take it from somewhere, they try and run it in the similar manner. Like most of the countries were under colonial past, so we do have almost similar kind of laws. So all those civil laws or all these AI laws, we do follow it from somewhere, and that is how we try and make it a point that all of them are technology friendly in our countries as well. Because India also, here we have an Information Technology Act pretty much for everything, be it for privacy, be it cyber security. Currently it is acting as a catalyst for AI as well. We are trying to bring up a AI Act as well. But all these laws, they are somewhere being enforced by the government only. It's not the people who do it. So government obviously will see everyone's benefit. It cannot see only one corporate benefit or one individual benefit. So what I wanted to say is all the countries, they try and make it user friendly and country friendly. They first see their demography, their languages also, their culture also, and obviously where they are placed in the power dynamics, I would say. So all these points are obviously there. So I'll now keep quiet and try and make a whole chart for what Thiago asked me for next.
Okay, my friend.
So with that, I think we should wrap up today's discussion. And before we go, I wanted to, Thiago mentioned that, alluded to this. I've had a discussion with him about a new project that we are working on.
Nice.
So we've named it officially Global South in AI. Like you have women in AI and, Black in AI. There are several diversity groups. So we called it Global South in AI. So this website will be globalsouthinai.org. And that's going to be, we've got approved to host it as a social affinity group at NeurIPS, which is a huge AI research conference in December. It comes up in December in New Orleans this year. And so we will have a call for paper that will go out in a day. And I want to make this the official announcement of the name Global South in AI. And I'm one of the program chairs along with Susanna, Parya, and Yash. I'm so honored. And then we'll have a double-blind review process and submission for posters on language models, data, and what's the other track? Model, data, I'm blanking out, and voice as the 3 tracks. So people can submit anything from various different, countries on helping improve language models to work for everybody to make AI language get out of its exclusive pedestal to be more inclusive. So I'm excited. I won't get to see the papers because it's going to be double blind, and we have, reviewers and area chairs who will do their review process. So you'll hear all about it soon. But thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to bring this to a wrap. And I've never felt so sad to close a meeting. And I look forward to both of you coming back next weekly Wednesday and continue the discussion and educate us more. I come from, coming from a technical background, I'm just thinking sandbox, and sandbox means you experiment. And I'm like, what does a legal sandbox mean that Spain has launched? So I'm going to hold on to that question. Divya, hopefully you will answer that for us next week. And Thiago has a whole bunch of prepared questions, so he's going to drive the discussion back. Thank you for being an amazing host, Thiago, and thank you for being
so
an
much.
amazing speaker, Divya. We love you both, and see you next week. Thank you. And bye, everybody.
We will be back.